When thinking about reviewing this rig, I was trying to think about what your average person would think about before picking up a rig like this. And at this price point, I think the two main things that people would want to know are what are the limitations of this rig? And more importantly, how does it change your sim racing experience? So in this review of the Next Level Racing FGT Elite, I'm going to try and answer both of those questions with some other information and suggestions along the way as well. So quickly, before we get into this review of this rig, Next Level Racing have been kind enough to send me out this rig. They sent this rig to me back in April, and I've been using it for the better part of about 5 months now. However, they've not told me to say anything. In fact, they've stressed the opposite. They want me to have full creative control over this review, so all the words that you hear in this review are my own. I was sitting there back in March or April time thinking about upgrading my rig. At the time, I had the Next Level Racing FGT, and I was just looking for some more out of it. At first, I really wanted the F1 Ultimate seat from Playseat, but looking at it, it was just way too expensive, and not knowing what else was out there, I was looking around and learned about aluminium rigs, and I heard that they were basically the best of the best. At the time, I didn't know that Next Level Racing had their own out, so I was frantically looking at different ones and asking people who had anything that I'd come across what they personally thought on it. And though everything sounded great to me, there was just a single issue. Most 80/20 rigs sit in a GT position, and my FGT had been set up in a Formula position, and that's what I was most comfortable with. Luckily, I noticed that Next Level Racing had their own 80/20 version of my rig, so I decided to shoot my shot with them. After 2 weeks of back and forth, I had the perfect rig sitting in my studio, ready to be built. So I'm currently sitting down editing the video, as you can see right there, but I wanted to give a shout out to two guys, and that's Dirt Chocolate and Jesse. Without those two, this video wouldn't be happening right now, so shout outs to those two guys, and let's get straight into the Q&A section with a very special interviewer. So Anthony, would you say that this rig has improved anything to do with your racing? 1000%. I'm not sure how relatable this is to you guys watching this review, but when it comes to watching 80/20 rig reviews, I was sitting there thinking to myself, I doubt there's that much of a difference. But surely enough, there genuinely is a huge difference. Even with a weaker Thrustmaster TX wheelbase, I still get more out of my force feedback just for the simple fact that this wheel plate doesn't move at all. Whereas with the FGT that I had previously, there would be a little bit of play. And don't even get me started when it comes to the pedals. Just having the pedals not flex on the braking just helps so much with consistency. And what would you say is the limitations of this rig? Genuinely nothing, or should I say more, it's your imagination that's the limitation. Now personally, I'm not really someone that needs a lot out of my rig. However, just take a look at some of the pictures that I'll have on screen right now, and you can see this sheer creativity that people have when it comes to 80/20 rigs like this. It's literally as simple as, if you have more aluminium pieces, you can do anything you want with this rig. So after using this rig for as long as you have, who would you say that this is best for? Well, I'm not going to beat around the bush. We all know that these rigs are quite expensive and they're not budget friendly. So of course, mainly this is suited for people with bigger budgets. However, I'd say if you plan on using stronger equipment, so for example, load cell pedals or hydraulic pedals, or even direct drive wheelbases, I highly recommend getting this. In fact, I would go as far to say you need this because everything else is probably going to give you some sort of flex, meaning some sort of inconsistency, whereas with 80/20 rigs, you'll get the consistency you're looking for. Also, if you want to sit in a Formula style position, this is your best bang for buck. Like, this is the best quality for the money that you're going to be paying for. However, if you either don't really care about sitting in a Formula position, or you more specifically want to sit in a GT position, I wouldn't recommend getting this rig in particular. I'd recommend getting the GT Elite, which is pretty much the exact same rig, except it doesn't come with the feature of sitting in a Formula position. Oh, and did I mention that the GT Elite is cheaper than this one as well? So here's the big question that we all want to know when it comes to this rig. What is the biggest issue? For me, it's definitely got to be the chair. Now, one thing I will quickly say to you guys is that the chair is technically a different product from the rig itself. Which is one thing I'm not a big fan of, but either way, it is what it is. But when I actually received the chair, I was given the wrong bolts for this chair. And because I was given the wrong bolts, it scratched up quite a lot of the underneath of my rig, which, to be honest, even though nobody can see it, it's still there, and it really grinds my gears because of the price point of this rig. And when I did contact Next Level Racing about this, I wasn't actually given the right bolts by them. I was just told to use another set of bolts that came with the chair that also didn't fit. So yeah, I was pretty frustrated by that experience. Luckily, if for whatever reason you are in the same situation as me, which should be very unlikely, you can actually buy the bolts needed through Amazon. Now, would you say that this rig is as sturdy as people claim? Yeah, I can assume that any aluminium rig is like this though. I think it's just the way that they cut it and stuff like that. I'm not entirely too sure, but the way that they present it, it just makes it for a more sturdy build. Like, I'm not even kidding, my pedals tend to flex before the actual rig does. Now, my pedals aren't the highest quality out there, but that's still a crazy feat. Now, if you tend to watch videos of mine, or if you're just watching me just bounce around, you'll see that the back of the chair does flex. That is just a trait of reclining seats though. Like, you could generally spend like 100 grand on a reclining seat and it's probably going to have some flex, and that's just because it's two pieces of a chair that's sort of bolted together, so there will always be flex in that case. However, they do have locks on both sides, making it very sturdy than, well, a lot more sturdier than most reclining seats like this. Also, what about the monitor mounting options? Do they have different options that people can use? When it comes to the monitor mounts, there are different options. I personally got the one that literally just mounts onto the rig itself. Personally, I regret doing that just because when you upgrade your monitor to a much bigger one like how I've done, you don't really have as much flexibility as you think you would. I would have much rather if I had gotten the one that goes on the outside of the rig and goes down to the floor. So I just wanted to quickly talk about what I just said in the review right there. So as you can see right here, we've got a new monitor. It's a 32-inch monitor, and I upgraded from a 24-inch monitor. On that 24-inch, I could see everything perfectly fine. But as you can see, probably right around about here, there's only a certain amount of space I can move that monitor back, and the 32-inch is a bit too big. So even though I've got it as far back as it can go, there's just some things I can't see on the screen. When I'm playing F122, for example, I can't see what gear I'm in. If I want to see the actual number, I need to actually lift my head above the wheel, etc, etc. So I kind of wish I had the other one that would go just around the rig, so that all I would need to do is just push the rig back, the monitor back, instead of actually being limited by how much I can do that by. If you plan on sitting in a Formula style position like myself, in my opinion, this is the best option out there. However, I know that a lot of you guys wouldn't necessarily have the budget or even the space for something like this. I do luckily have the space. I definitely do not have the budget for something like this though. So if you do fit into one of those categories, I highly recommend just checking out Next Level Racing's line of cockpits, because they do have options based on your budget or your space. For example, if you have the space but don't necessarily have the budget, you can always get the Next Level Racing FGT, which is pretty much similar to this, except it uses slightly cheaper materials. However, it's still very good. I personally use that rig for quite a while and I have nothing but praises about it, except for the pedal plate. My version did flex a little bit, but they have since fixed that. However, if you fit into the space of, well, not having any space, then I highly recommend getting the Next Level Racing Lite. I'll have a link, I think, on the top right hand side of the screen, just for someone who's done an FGT Lite review so that you can actually check it out for yourself. However, if you do want to just check out the Next Level Racing FGT, I will have a link in the description down below to my review that I did probably about a year ago or so now on that rig. So I've been planning, recording and editing this review for the past couple of months now, as you guys could probably tell from watching this review. So to wrap up this rig as a whole, if you have the money, just get it, because to be honest with you, you're not going to find a rig that sits in a Formula 1 position that is of as high as quality for as little money. And what I mean by little money, I know this is still a very expensive rig, but if you were to compare it to the Placey Ultimate, it is pretty much half the price. I genuinely enjoyed having the normal FGT, and for the past 6 months now at the time of recording this, I've absolutely loved having the FGT Elite, and I plan on trying to get more things done to this rig so that it can be even better. What else can I say, guys? It doesn't move. When you're driving, it doesn't move. That's pretty much all you need to know. So go ahead and get the FGT Elite.